We're halfway through the January window and so many clubs are still looking to make signings. That is great news for the transfer team, who can tell us what's coming up this hour.
Inter officials are in London to try and tie up moves for Christian Eriksen and Olivier Giroud as Antonio Conte continues to try and recruit players from the Premier League.
Still no sign of Pogba as he recovers from his injury, but there's more rumours, this time linking with a summer move to Italy or Spain. We bring you the latest.
Jack Rodwell is through the door, but will there be any further signings at Sheffield United? We are live there to find out.
And Everton are interested in signing Everton. All will be revealed later as we take a closer look at the Merseyside club.
First day on set.
Reminder, you can download the latest Transfer Talk podcast right now. It's available on iTunes, Spreaker and the Sky Sports website. We start with what looks likely to be the biggest move of 2020, but it won't be happening this month. Dave, explain what's going on with Paul Pogba.
Yeah, it seems we're talking about Paul Pogba again, and it's mainly due to what our colleagues at Sky in Germany were reporting. Paul Pogba is likely to leave Manchester United, not this month, but in the summer. That's according to our colleagues over in Germany. And Real Madrid and Juventus are both looking at Paul Pogba. We're told that Paul Pogba would preferably like to join Real Madrid and Zinedine Zidane's side. That's not too far away from what we were reporting here at Sky Sports News over the summer, that Real Madrid were heavily interested in Paul Pogba. Now, United, they want to keep Pogba at least until the end of the season, mainly due to the fact that there's a lack of replacements available for Paul Pogba this month. You also have to consider the complex relationship between Pogba and his agent Mino Raiola and the club Manchester United. Raiola brought him to Manchester United from Juventus in 2016. He's, of course, graduated through the Manchester United Youth Academy, signed a 5-year contract when he rejoined that contains an option to extend it by a further year until 2022. And that contract trigger that United have is going to be a key part of any potential move for Paul Pogba.
Yeah, it's absolutely vital that Manchester United can do that, of course, to maximise his value. Michael, would the summer be the right time for Paul Pogba to go?
Well, as Dave said, looks like he wants to play for Real Madrid, and it could be another summer saga, which we had last summer. The real issue for me here is the value. United will want around 125 to 150 million pounds, but clubs will probably turn around and say, hang on, your contract situation means we don't want to pay that because you've got 2 years left or a year left, but obviously United will probably exercise that. So the value is a real sticking point for me. United will want him to come back this season as best, the real Paul Pogba, for 2 reasons. To get in the top 4, because they're 5th at the moment, and also to get the value they believe Paul Pogba is, around 125 or 150 million pounds.
James, in the summer we talked a lot on this show about Paul Pogba. What did Pogba say in the summer about his future?
Well, he said he was on a tour of Asia, a promotional tour with Adidas, and he was quoted as saying, I think for me it could be a good time to have a new challenge somewhere else. Now, this was after he was acknowledging he had a really pretty good season at Manchester United last year. Remember, United struggled a bit at times, but Pogba made it into the PFA Player of the Year, scored 16 goals throughout the season. He had a pretty good year for them, but he made it pretty clear in the summer that he wasn't that keen. His agent, Mino Raiola, also was quoted in the Times saying that everyone within the club, from the manager and to the owner, knows Paul's wishes. Everyone knows the willingness of Paul to move on. We're in the process of that. Everyone knows what the feelings of Paul are. So that was last summer. And the saga is just continuing, isn't it? Yeah,
and JD, with the saga continuing, it seems like a story we might end up getting sick of talking about.
I'm bored of it already. Like, why are we still continuously talking about the same situation? Clearly there's a strain between the agent and the club that's been proven over time, and that's how quotations keep getting leaked into the media about his future and about his speculation leading to where he's going to be next summer. Why don't we just try and get Paul Pogba back on the football field? Let's just try and see if he can recover from his injury. And actually, right now you're a Manchester United player, which is one of the biggest clubs in the world. So that means you have to credit that contract that you have and play for the shirt. That's the most important factor right now, is getting Paul Pogba fit. Manchester United have their goals for this year, which will be to get back into top 4 in Europe and be competing in Europe's elite competition. That's what Paul Pogba's focus needs to be on, not next summer where we're going to potentially be talking about Real Madrid or Juventus. We'll cross that hurdle when it comes. But at the same time, right now, he needs to worry about getting fit, and we need to be focused on that.
And I think football fans want to see a fit Paul Pogba. They want to see Paul Pogba on that field performing at the level that we know he can. He is a joy to behold when he's on form. He can lead a team forward. He's going to be so crucial for France in the summer as well. And for France, they're going to want to see him play games. They don't want to see any transfer sagas going on about him. They just want to see him on the pitch performing week in, week out. And I certainly hope as a football fan we get to see that for the rest of the season.
Ray's has been in touch on Twitter, hashtag transfer talk, by the way, at Sky Sports News. Why do Manchester United want to keep Pogba till the end of the season? Due to a lack of replacements. They've basically already played half a season without him anyway. Let's just sell him now. And that's due to injury, Dave. But how much would Manchester United miss him if he was to go?
Well, it's difficult to say because he has missed so much of this season. He's only played 7 times this season. He's won twice, drawn 3. We've got some stats to show you. And unfortunately for Manchester United, he's just not played enough football. And he's won twice, drawn 3, lost 2. He's had 5 shots on target with 2 assists. And unfortunately, and it follows on really from what JD was saying there, the best scenario for Paul Pogba is him playing.
Just play football.
The best scenario for Manchester United is him playing.
And it'd actually probably be the best scenario for his agent as well, because if he's trying to force this move out of Manchester United, he can only do that by playing football. That's the only way that we can turn man and demonstrate to get his true value. I didn't mean to cut you, Dave, but that's the only way we're going to get his true value, and that's by Paul Pogba playing football. So whether it's value for Manchester United or it's value for his future club, Paul, we need to see you play.
Well, whenever we're talking about Paul Pogba, we get a lot of tweets coming into us from you, the viewers. Matthew says, if they sell Pogba, what are they going to do with the money? Give all the players a pay rise or buy more targets so it gets harder for everyone else to fight for their position. And Jason says, let Pogba go. To me, he's let Manchester United down. He's had less than 10 good games for us since he joined. Why keep a player that doesn't want to be at your club? Get rid and sign Bruno Fernandes and wish Real Madrid the best of luck in dealing with him. That's Pogba. All right, so Jason there mentions Bruno Fernandes. Michael, we thought this deal might be done by now, as in Bruno Fernandes coming into Manchester United. What's the hold-up?
Well, I think Sporting are looking for a £60 million package, whether that's the fee in total or players in exchange. One key here, and my colleague Damo Chef mentioned this as well yesterday, Sporting Lisbon play Bayern Munich. Benfica. They're 16 points behind Benfica. That is a huge rivalry in Portugal. It'd be really interesting to see Bruno Fernandes at the end of that game. Now, in the summer, he thought he was joining Spurs. He was waving goodbye. He was in tears. But all you hear about Bruno Fernandes, he's an amazing professional. He didn't drop his head when he didn't get the move to the Premier League, and he's carried it on, and he's had a fantastic few months for Sporting. Now, well, it'll be really interesting to see the reaction after that game. But could that be one of the reasons that's holding this deal up? Because from what I've seen of Bruno Fernandes, United fans have every right to be excited.
Well, that's it, JD. What will he bring to the club?
Goals, assists, a grit in a tackle, pretty much everything that Manchester United need in the centre of their midfield at this moment in time. I mean, everyone's praised Scott McTominay's kind of development this year in terms of how he's come through into the first team, how he's kind of adapted straight away into Ollie's sort of style of football. Everyone's question marking as to whether or not Paul Pogba will still be there, whether it's this season, next season or beyond. But right now, what they can be excited about is if they do sign Bruno Fernandes, they're going to get a player who's pretty much ready to go now. And that's what Manchester United need. They need a player that's in their prime who can do everything. You're talking about an all-level midfielder. They haven't had one of those in close to about 10 years, we'll say, since Paul Scholes, I would say, want to say.
Yeah, loads of people have been getting in touch with all through the summer and all through January, Manchester United fans wanting Bruno Fernandes to come. And it looks like they may well be getting their wish eventually. A couple more tweets coming in. Ozzy says, get Pogba gone. He's cost Jose his job and he's never lived up to the hype. Seems like Fergie was right about Pogba and his agent all along. You can get in touch. It's hashtag transfer talk on Twitter at Sky Sports News. Right, OK, it's time for State of Play now with Michael.
Thanks, Tom. Inter Milan director Pierre Asulio is in London meeting with Tottenham and Chelsea over deals for Christian Eriksen and Olivier Giroud. Now, Tottenham have been offered the chance to sign Porto striker Jose Luis on loan. Heading from Tottenham to Arsenal, and head coach Mikel Arteta has rubbish suggestions. He wants to sign Manchester City centre-back John Stones. Everton are interested in Brazil and Gremio winger Everton Suarez, who is on the radar of several top Premier League clubs, out to Southampton. And they've told Leeds that Che Adams will not be leaving St Mary's in this window. And let's go back to Arsenal, and Eddie Nketiah will stay at the club this month, and that's despite interest from a host of Championship sides.
You know, some news just into us, actually, and it's quite surprising news, I would imagine. And this is all according to Sky in Italy, by the way. The AC Milan, they're considering a move for one of two British talents to replace their left-back, Ricardo Rodriguez. OK, now these are the two British talents that we're going to tell you about. It's Wigan's 22-year-old Anthony Robinson and Hearts teenager Aaron Hickey are two names being discussed at the San Siro. So AC Milan wanting to replace left-back Ricardo Rodriguez with either Anthony Robinson of Wigan or Aaron Hickey of Hearts. Now, Wigan only signed Robinson from Everton last summer. It was an initial loan spell. And Hickey played 18 times in the Scottish Premiership. He scored once. And he was last season's Scottish Cup final, was just his third senior appearance, and looks like they're under consideration from AC Milan. Now, crucially, the Milan chiefs see this as their potential understudies to Theo Hernandez, who's their first choice right back, because Rodriguez looks like he's on his way out to Fenerbahce. So Hickey and Robinson are under consideration from AC Milan as their backup left back, shall we say. And much more to come on Good Morning Transfers. We'll be live to Sheffield United, plus we'll have the latest on Christian Eriksen and news of potential incoming at Tottenham.
Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. Good to have you with us. Let's round up what's happening in the EFL. Arsenal forward Eddie Nketiah will stay at the club this month, despite interest from a host of Championship sides. Nottingham Forest, Sheffield Wednesday and Bristol City were all interested in taking him on loan for the second half of the season. Fulham are in advanced negotiations to sign Dutch international defender Terence Kongolo from Huddersfield Town. Huddersfield's former manager David Wagner signed the 25-year-old from Monaco on a permanent deal in June 2018 for a then club record fee believed to be around £18 million. Hull have confirmed they've had interest in permanent and loan deals for Jarrod Bowen, but are reluctant to let him go as they have playoff aspirations themselves this season. Lincoln manager Michael Appleton has said defender Harry Toffolo will be allowed to leave this month. That's if another side meets their valuation of the left-back. Huddersfield made an offer in recent days. And Grimsby Town have signed Brighton's James Tilley on a permanent deal. The 21-year-old attacking midfielder, who spent the first half of the season on loan at National League Yeovil, has signed an 18-month contract.
Yeah, what's going on in the EFL. But let's get the latest transfer news from a Premier League club now in Sheffield United. Tim Thornton joins us. Tim, good morning to you. I know you'll be speaking to Chris Wilder shortly. Do you expect him to have any news of potential incomings or, of course, outgoings?
Yeah, morning, Tom. Well, we're hoping for an update, first and foremost, because it's been fairly quiet at Sheffield United so far in this window. Jack Rodwell has come in until the end of the season. A lot of talk about players moving out, a lot of the fringe players that haven't played a lot over the course of the last 12 months. So the likes of Leon Clark, Ben Hennigan, we expect them to be moved on before the end of the month. Then there's a second category of players that have been linked with moves away. The likes of Billy Sharp and Ben Osborne and Luke Freeman. We don't expect any of those players to leave in this window. They're very much part of Chris Wilder's plans. We do know that he wants to bring players in, a defender and a striker at the very least. We asked him about it last week, and I'll use a cricket analogy because he used it last week. He said, I'm going to be like Jeffrey Boycott and straight bat any names that you put to me. But he did say they were working hard on transfers. They were doing what they could, but it is a difficult window and it's a challenge and they have to be patient. So we'll find out today just where they're at in terms of incomings. But we're expecting this to be quite a busy final few days of the transfer window here at Sheffield United. There is certainly business to be done. They're looking to get players in and they are looking to get players out. And they sit in a very healthy position in the league table at the moment. They go to Arsenal this weekend. They're 4 points and 4 places above them in the Premier League.
Tim, I'm sure you'll try to get him to edge one to slips. Thank you. Right, looking forward to hearing from Chris Wilder a little bit later on. On to 2 potential departures from the Premier League now, and they could be going to the same club. OK, what's the latest on Christian Eriksen and Olivier Giroud, Michael?
Yeah, it looks like Antonio Conte is looking to bring some proven Premier League quality to Serie A like he did in the summer. Alexis Sanchez and Romelu Lukaku, of course, are in the San Siro at the moment. So the director, Piero Asulio, was in London yesterday to meet up and to talk with Tottenham and Chelsea over deals for Christian Eriksen and Olivier Giroud. If I was an Inter Milan fan, I'd be very excited at the moment. But as it stands with Eriksen, they've offered around 8.5 million. Tottenham will want double that. I mean, despite him being out of contract in the summer, they're going to want more than 8.5 million. Now, Sky in Italy reported on Friday that Giroud, remember his deal expires in the summer, had agreed a 2.5-year contract. More on that as we get it, but it's clear that Conte is looking for the Premier League proven players, and you'd say if he gets those two over the line, they've done great business, because from my point of view, I'd imagine that Eriksen will be wanted by more clubs if he's made available on a free in the summer.
JD, £8.5 million. No chance, surely.
Surely, yeah, I think it's good value for money at this stage. I mean, Bridgie, you were there. Think about it, Bridgie. Think about how that must be reaching boiling point now between the fans and Christian Eriksen. I mean, that's not good from the players' perspective, that's not good for the fans' perspective, and it's not good for the club overall. We've seen at their North London rivals what can sometimes happen if those things can go over the top. So I think for everyone's standpoint, it probably needs to move on now.
Yeah.
And 8.5 million for a player that's only got 6 months left in his contract would be good for everybody. Think about the wage bill that would come off that as well. You could reinvest that into the squad later on down the line.
It's a bit like going into university in the first year. You're trying to keep a relationship going, but you know it's on the way out, don't you?
Whoa. Don't speak for everyone here.
Yeah, I mean, the Liverpool situation wasn't great.
That's the worst analogy I've ever heard.
Trying to make us all bring us all to your level.
Sense for a start.
It's not, because it makes me flash back to university.
Well, on the £8.5 million, that's not happy for everyone, is it?
No. Tottenham are going to want more than that. And I think Jose Mourinho, I don't think he wants to lose him, to be honest with you. He's still playing him. But obviously, as he's rightly said, Mourinho, the performances haven't been the performances that Spurs fans are used to.
I mean, what's the question? The question mark there would be, though, we've seen statistically his motivation drop off, technically. His numbers have dropped off, his work rate. So what type of Christian Eriksen are you getting at this moment in time? I mean, we had U's an expression on here last week, and even though between all of the jokes and all the rest of it, he made some very, very good points about continuously, and I've heard Spurs fans say it, the ball doesn't beat the front man. Beforehand, that was never a point for Christian Eriksen. Assists, creating chances, that was what he was known for. Right now, you're not getting that productivity, so why would you want to keep that player in your squad?
Yeah, it's a fair point, yeah.
No, it is a fair point. I think the frustration is just over the top now. It's boiling. We just spoke previously about Paul Pogba, didn't we? And the saga, the long-running saga with Man United and Man United fans, the tweets that were coming in, very negative towards Paul Pogba, wanting him to leave. It's getting to that point with Christian Eriksen now where fans are really turning on him. And this is a player that's given so much to the club since 2013. He produced a fantastic season last night, was key to them reaching the Champions League final. I hope Spurs fans keep that in mind. I think it's time he goes. The jeering when he came off the field against Liverpool was just too much now. And I think now, right, let's cut ties. Let's remember him for what he's done to that club. Praise him, let him go on his way to a new challenge and a new environment where hopefully he'll shine again.
I mean, the thing is, are Inter playing on that then? Are Inter playing on that with that 8.5 million is a low ball offer? Are they playing on the fact that the relationship has soured a little bit and Tottenham would like him out the door? Tottenham fans would, we've spoken about before, would like to get this sorted out either way, whatever happens, sorted out as quick as possible. Now, Inter, with a starting offer of 8.5 million, are they not dragging this out even longer because they know that Spurs aren't going to go anywhere near £8.5 million?
Dave, you have to look at the situation. Christian Eriksen as a player is not worth 8.5 million. We know he's one of the elite talents across Europe, but that's not what we're considering here. You're talking about Christian Eriksen with 6 months left on his contract, with his home fans jeering him coming off of his pitch.
What's the Champions League worth to Tottenham? That's worth more than £8.5 million.
And with their injuries, he's going to have to play because of the injuries. He's not exactly not going to try, is he?
No, he's still going to try for sure, but the 8.5 million, let's Daniel Levy in control. There's no way he's going to sell him for £8.5 million.
You could potentially lose him for nothing in less than 6 months. So why would you not try and profit in now?
I just don't think they're going to accept 8.5 million. I really don't. Bridgie, you spoke about their shortcomings in midfield for quite a while now, and if it's 8.5 million or having a player of Eriksen's calibre still at the squad for another 5 months, I think it's probably a fine balance between it, but I think 8.5 million is just not enough.
Yeah, keep the tweets coming in on this, by the way, because we're going to move on to Giroud in a second, but keep your tweets coming in on Eriksen, #transfer talk. MB says, with Eriksen on his way out, Spurs should be pushing harder for Bruno Fernandes, a quality player. Of course, they have already brought in another Fernandes, but MB thinks that they should bring in Bruno Fernandes, that they did try to do in the summer, of course. So that's Eriksen. What about Olivier Giroud? And Dave, is it looking like a case of when and not if he leaves?
It seems that way. Michael mentioned Piero Ausilio, the Inter director, having talks about Christian Eriksen. Well, he's also trying to do a deal at the same time for Olivier Giroud. Inter want a deal done as quickly as possible. They want him for around £4 million. Chelsea, we're getting deja vu because Chelsea want double, same as Tottenham. They want closer to £8 million. The expectation, though, is that this might be a little bit more movable than perhaps the Christian Eriksen deal is. The expectation is now that this deal will be done pretty quickly. It's clear from the player's point of view that he wants to play more. He's hoping that he's going to get that at Inter Milan. He needs to be playing in the European Championships this summer. The question is then how much will they play Inter, how much will they pay Inter, and then how much will they play him at Inter, because they've got Romelu Lukaku and they've got Lautaro Martinez as well. So he's going from one competition to another bit of competition at Inter Milan.
Yeah, James, that's the thing. If he's wanting to play to make sure he's going to the Euros, maybe Inter Milan isn't the best place for him, as Dave just explained.
You can't blame a 33-year-old for having his eyes fluttered by Inter Milan. 2.5-year contract at 33 as well, and one of the biggest clubs in Europe. You understand from the player's perspective. However, in the short term, the Euros coming up, he's a starter for France and certainly has been, but a season with very few games, surely that's going to be in doubt.
At this stage, he probably wouldn't start for France. I mean, Oliver Giroud has already turned around and said that this will be his last international tournament. So we have to recognise that he has his eyes set on featuring for that France team. Right now, with Mbappe in that team and other attacking threats, Giroud is not going to be their number one striker at this moment in time.
He has been, though, hasn't he?
Of course he has been.
I mean, this season
he's led the line.
been.
And he has led the line. I know he scored 4 international goals, and that's where the majority of his goals has come from this year. But at the same time, match fitness and confidence and form is going to be the most important thing going into that Euros. And any international manager would say that to you.
With Kane's injury, we've been thinking, Michael, that Tottenham might be after a striker. I know we've just gone from Eriksen to Giroud. I want to go back to Tottenham, actually, because there was some news on a potential striker going into Tottenham, wasn't there?
Yeah, Zé Luiz, who plays for Porto, we're told that he might have been offered on loan. He's got a fantastic record. He scored 8 in 10 this season. I am sick of hearing about this question. Why does anyone want to join Tottenham if they're going to be on the bench to Harry Kane? I'm sick of it. It has to stop. Because Tottenham Hotspur do not have a second striker on their bench at the moment, senior striker. They need that. They need someone off the bench. They need another... You know, a few years ago, Spurs had the options of 3 or 4. They're looking short now. Jose knows they're short now. They let go of Vincent Janssen and Fernando Llorente, which is absolutely fine, but because they didn't replace them, in a bit of a pickle now. Harry Kane's had ankle injuries for the last few seasons, and he's been out for a considerable period of time. This hamstring injury, it's not complete. It's not, you know, he hasn't been ruled out. He could be ruled out for this season. We just don't know. It's a really bad hamstring injury.
There's so much pain in your eyes right now.
So Tottenham, there has to be this thing with any player coming in. You could be a top striker for Tottenham. You're not going to be sitting on the bench. They have to get away from this, and this question has to stop being asked.
I love the passion. For real, I love the passion.
You look a little bit upset, but let's be honest, the second striker will be sitting on the bench the majority of the time.
What between now and the end of the season? Harry Kane has, unfortunately, it's becoming a regular thing, season after season, that Harry Kane is unfortunately picking up ankle injuries and this hamstring injury. So a striker has the opportunity now to come in and really make his mark and a hero in that stadium.
OK, so let me ask you just a quick question. If Harry Kane comes back from injury and the striker that you want to come in hits the ground running, what happens to Harry Kane?
What a lovely option to have. What a lovely option to have for a manager, to have options. Because at the moment, Jose Mourinho doesn't have as many options as he wants, and they're in so many cup competitions, they've got to get more in.
Yeah, top clubs do tend to have more than just one top striker. OK, right, keep using that hashtag transfer talk to have your say. Next, we'll be talking all things Aston Villa, and will Everton sign Everton?
Welcome along. This is Good Morning Transfers. Remember, you can get in touch using the hashtag transfer talk. Now, let's revisit Aston Villa's wish list. They are at 2 out of 3 at the moment. We've got ticks next to the goalkeeper. Villa fans will be very happy with the arrival of goalkeeper Pepe Reina, the World Cup winner, set to replace the injured Tom Heaton, who is now, of course, out for the rest of the season. We've got a tick next to the midfielder as well. The club have also signed Danny Drinkwater on loan from Chelsea. The midfielder will provide cover for John McGinn, who's out until at least March with that fractured ankle. Next, and finally, probably the most important for Villa fans, probably the most difficult as well. If Villa didn't need one before the New Year's Day injury to Wesley, they certainly do now. Maybe they'll be looking at 2 of them as well. Jonathan Kodjia is out of the picture. Keenan Davis has struggled with injury. Some fans are calling for the return of Christian Benteke. One thing is for sure, Villa need to tick that final striker box before the end of the transfer window.
Yeah, but JD, 3 ticks needed, 2 already halfway through the transfer window. How pleased will Dean Smith to have at least got 2 of them in early?
I think he would be pleased to one extent, but I think at the same time he'd be really, really concerned at another, because if you look at their situation in the league right now, they're still sitting precariously within that relegation battle, which is not a good place that Aston Villa wanted to be in, especially with all that investment they put in over the summer. And the most glaring statistic, I think, is the unticked box. They need a striker. Like, it's so glaringly obvious they need a striker, because we've hyperboled and talked about Jack Grealish's impact throughout the season so far. And throughout all of the negativity that's been around Villa, he's been a really, really positive spark. But one great statistic about Jack Grealish is the chances he creates and the amount of fouls that he draws. And imagine he had a striker that could put away all of those chances that he's actually creating within the league at this moment in time. Villa's sort of league position would shoot up almost instantaneously.
But James, how important is it that they get the right striker when you're in a relegation battle?
It's absolutely vital. I want to take you down a little tour of history. So take you back to 2002, 2003. Remember it well, JD?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah. JD, you're probably about 4?
Not far off.
Lucky man, lucky man. I was a little bit older than that. And a certain Birmingham City had achieved Premier League games. They've got to the Premier League after seasons of missing out on Premier League football via the playoffs. They got to January and sitting in 15th in a precarious situation. They signed 6 players, one of which was a certain World Cup winner, Christophe Dugarry. He took a little bit of time to get going, but in April he hit the ground running, scored 5 in 4, and Birmingham survived another season. He went down in folklore. A bit closer to recent times, 2015, Sunderland signed Jermaine Defoe in January. His goals helped them secure another season in the Premier League, and the season after, Sunderland sitting in 19th. Jermaine Defoe's goals from January to the end of the season, 11 of which in the Premier League, meant another year of safety and survival for Sunderland. And only last season, Crystal Palace were struggling a little bit, 15th place going into January. Michael Bridge will note, well, standing there outside the ground in a freezing cold on deadline day, and a certain Michy Batshuayi come through the door. His goals, 5 goals in which, from the end of the transfer window to the end of the season, helped Crystal Palace rise up the table. So my point is, Tom, strikers, they are so important, and Aston Villa are in desperate need of one. They have to sign one.
It's a big January for them.
Yeah, it is. Dave, that must give some Aston Villa fans some hope that if they can get the right one, like James was saying with Christophe Dugarry back in the day, Jermaine Defoe, Michy Batshuayi last season, that can make a huge difference.
It can be done. It's just very difficult to get it done. Villa have had a list of between 5 and 10 forwards that they're looking at. And usually it's very difficult to get the good players out of clubs because the good players are playing in January. So you're not going to be able to get someone who is in another team's first team out of there usually to your club in January.
What about Olivier Giroud?
Well, that's the issue.
Didn't they?
The issue is that they obviously approached Chelsea for a loan deal for Olivier Giroud, and it seems like the player wasn't that interested. Now Villa have got Danny Drinkwater. If Villa were going to go in for Olivier Giroud, it would have to be on a permanent deal.
And probably a 2.5-year deal if that's what Inter...
Exactly, and I just think, you know, the pull of Inter Milan, plus having already been turned down once by Giroud, it's probably not going to happen. I think from Villa fans' point of view, they would probably say the players that have been linked with Villa so far in this window have probably been a little bit agent-led. Agents know that Villa are looking for a striker. They're putting their clients' names out there, knowing that Villa are going to have to do some business at some point in the window. As we get closer towards the end of the window, other teams will get their priority areas sorted out. Things can change in a day. A player can become available because they've signed somebody else, and that might mean that Villa can then step in and do the business. It's just a bit of a waiting game at the moment, and I think supporters will have to be patient. The difficulty is the games are coming, and Villa need a striker for those games.
I just want to ask him one question. We've seen the rumours of Christian Benteke. You know Villa inside out in terms of, and we've seen it historically within the Premier League, old strikers going back to their old stomping grounds, and sometimes it working out and sometimes it not working out. Do you feel like Benteke would be the type of fit that would work out at Villa? I'm putting pressure on you, sorry.
Well, I certainly know that there's a certain number of supporters that would love to see Christian Benteke back at the club, and that is probably more for nostalgia value than anything else. He was absolutely terrific for Aston Villa. The question has been over his injuries and his form then since the injury, and I don't think Dean Smith or anybody at Aston Villa is a sentimental type of manager. This is purely business. This is business now. Villa have to stay in the Premier League from that point of view, so it's whether it would make financial sense to get the player in.
Right, let's get to Everton now. We particularly like this potential move. JD, tell us about Everton's interest in Everton.
Yeah, I see you play the word on play, and we've been having fun with it all day, but there is actually genuine interest for Everton on Everton, and Everton are interested in the Brazilian and Gremio winger Everton Suarez, who was on the radar for a lot of Premier League clubs that we reported within the summer. Arsenal and Spurs were interested, of course, across Europe as well, AC Milan, but he's that kind of tricky, typical winger that's in the modern day now. You're talking about someone who wants to cut him from the wing and kind of drive at defences all the time, and he's creating great chances, and we've seen on the social media that great relationship he has with Richarlison, them sending it back and forth. So I think we've seen the social aspect of it as how the interest is there, but what's most interesting is the Gremio executive director Klaus Camara has been quoted in the Brazilian media stating that Everton in for Everton is a situation, and it's been coming up more intensely more recently, but there's been no proposal kind of put forward at this moment in time. So it's still speculation, but there is an interest there.
What's he like, though, JD? Because the way you just described him there makes him sound a little bit like Bernard.
It does.
A little bit like Richarlison. Not too different from Iwobi, maybe even Walcott as well, who they've already got.
That's the problem, and that's the problem we've seen recently with Everton. It seems that they are signing a lot of players, but can they get that definitive player that can take them over the edge where their club sees themselves in terms of ambition-wise? Now, Everton Suarez is clearly a talented player. You wouldn't have the head of Spurs going to look at him directly. You wouldn't have Arsenal being on Arsenal's radar. You wouldn't have AC Milan being interested in you if you didn't have an element of quality, especially coming from the Brazilian league. But it's at the same time, as you say, Tom, there's a lot of players that are filling a similar role that would all be on very, very lucrative wages at Everton right now. So I understand Ancelotti trying to put his stamp on the team, but you have to kind of balance it both ways.
Yeah, OK, well Everton signing a player like that would be, I'm sure, good news for the fans regardless, but there was some worrying financial news yesterday, wasn't there, Michael?
They had their AGM on Tuesday. They recorded record losses of £111.8 million, but they did post the second highest turnover in their history. They're in a bit of a transition, aren't they? Because, you know, they spent quite a lot under the Koeman era near the end of that tenure. But it is still an exciting time for Everton. They've brought in a top manager in Carlo Ancelotti, apart from the Liverpool result in the FA Cup, which was hugely disappointing. But that probably gives him a lot of answers more than questions. Is like, oh, this is a really big job I've got right here. So there is a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to be excited with the stadium as well, the Usmanov investment as well in terms of the potential naming rights. So Everton can be excited, but obviously there's still plenty in the squad where they probably need to sort of look elsewhere and need to get off the wage books.
And David, the impact of their spending there that Michael's just talked about, that's surely to have an impact this month and possibly even in the summer.
Well, yeah, you would expect so. The thing for Everton is that the owner and the people in charge at Everton have the money, and they want to spend the money, It's just they are being curtailed a little bit by financial fair play. And I think that will now come into their consideration when it comes to spending. That may not be great news for Carlo Ancelotti, but the good news for Everton fans is that the owners and chairman want to spend the money. There's no issue with spending the money. It's just they may not be able to, and they might have to be clever with the finances. It's the same as what we were talking about with Aston Villa there. Some supporters saying that we should go out and spend 30, 40 million pounds on a striker. The fact is, with the new owners have come in, saving Villa from the brink, invested over 150 million pounds, not just in playing personnel, but infrastructure and other things with the club. And then when the accounts come out for Aston Villa, they will then get a sense of where the club are at in terms of financial fair play. The money's there to be spent, same with Everton, it's just they may not be able to spend it.
I think you've got to spend the money wisely, though. And I look at Everton in the summer, their transfer dealings. Alex Iwobi, probably overspent on him, in my opinion, probably. Hasn't really performed up to the level I think they were expecting. Moise Keane, again, he's starting to play a little bit more. Jean-Philippe Bamin, Andre Gomez obviously had that horrific injury. Fabian Delph has been subject to a little bit of criticism from Everton fans recently. They signed Djibril Sidibe on loan. Slotted in quite well at right back, but they spent a lot of money in the summer. Now, it's great if you've got money available, but you've got to spend it in the right way. If you want to progress up the Premier League, it's got to be spent smartly. But they've got the right man at the helm now in Carlo Ancelotti. He's made an immediate impact at the club as soon as he's come in. If he's trusted in the transfer market, I think there's no better manager right now who will be able to bring in the right players for the club.
Right, remember, you can download the latest episode of the Transfer Talk podcast, available on iTunes and Spreaker. Next on Good Morning Transfers, a roundup of some of the news in the Scottish Premiership, and we'll talk Arsenal.
Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. Time to round up some stories in the Scottish Premiership. Let's start with Celtic, and they're interested in Ivorian midfielder Ismaila Soro, but will need to outbid Belgian side Genk to sign the 21-year-old. Now, Soro plays in Israel and appeared to be set to move away after the club's new manager, Alicia Levy, revealed a deal was in place. Where? We will find out. Now, Neil Lennon, he knows the Israeli market well, remember signing Biram Kayel, Nir Bitton and Efe Ambrose in the past. Let's go to Rangers now. And Steven Gerrard has just held his news conference ahead of their Scottish Cup weekend, playing Stranraer tomorrow. And he's always in the market for new players. More on that in the next hour. Now, players coming out. Gerrard says players will have to go out on loan. And we understand Southern have approached Rangers about the possibility of taking Greg Doherty on loan until the end of the season. And Gerrard says as much as they love him at Ibrox, he needs to go and play. Now let's go to St Johnstone. And they've confirmed that winger Matthew Kennedy has signed a pre-contract agreement with Aberdeen, and he will join them at the end of the season. Let's go to Motherwell. And Liam Grimshaw has extended his contract with the club until the summer of 2022. Now, you might have missed this earlier. We broke this on Good Morning Transfers. Hearts teenager Aaron Hickey is being linked with a move to AC Milan. Wow. More on that as we get it.
Yeah, and staying with Scotland, we are hoping to go live to Rangers training a little bit later on, as soon as they are ready for us. But there is some news just into us from Huddersfield, and they're closing in on a deal to bring Harry Toffolo to the club, and that will reunite him with his former boss at Lincoln, of course, Danny Cowley, who's now at Huddersfield. Huddersfield are in advanced talks to sign him. He's a left-back, understood to be an agreement on the fee, so he's set to join pending the results of a medical, and they, of course, need to agree personal terms as well. So it looks like Harry Toffolo is going to be working with Danny Cowley again and going to Huddersfield. Right, we promised to chat about Arsenal. Let's do that right now then, because Mikel Arteta, he played down reports that he's interested in signing Manchester City centre-back John Stones and the AC Milan central midfielder Frank Kessié. Right, James, John Stones, is he, they're not going to go in for him, but is he the type of centre-back Arsenal need?
I think he is, ability-wise. He's good on the ball, likes to play the ball from the back, which is Arteta's way as well. I think if you look at the centre-backs that Arsenal have got right now, the fit ones, they've got Socrates, David Luiz. That's pretty much it. Rob Holding's struggling for fitness. He's coming back in. We know Callum Chambers is out injured. Mustafi seems like, well, it still sounds like he may be off this window, and it doesn't leave much more. They've got Saliba coming in the summer, but John Stones would improve that back line. Do I think he's the total answer? No, but I think he'll improve Arsenal's defence. I know someone's going to disagree with me.
Oh, well, yeah, you can see me shaking my head. That's
You disagree with everyone, JD, but come on. I know you had something to say on this one.
I just don't really understand your... I mean, first of all, Mikel Arteta coming out and saying that he's not interested in John Stones gives a confidence boost to all of those defenders that he has in his team right now. But also, I just think John Stones is just not the type of fit that Arsenal need. Anybody that's watched Arsenal play this year, and this is not any knock on John Stones, because I actually think John Stones is an incredible talent. When he first came through, he was the epitome of what was a ball-playing defender. Everyone was ranting and raving about we have this English player that looks so elegant on the football, almost looks Italian when he labours out with the ball, and his distribution is unreal. But at the same time, looking at Arsenal's defence this year, they've been riddled with individual errors. And we've seen in the last 18 months, 12 months of John Stones' career, he's had the defensive side of his games probably needs to be worked on more than any other side. And that comes with those individual errors. So as experience comes and as he develops his game, those side of his game will get ironed out naturally. But at the same time, right now in that Arsenal team, that is not the type of defender that Arsenal need. They need a defender first.
Right, well, we wrapped up some of the latest stories in the Scottish Premiership a moment ago with Michael. Let's get a further update from Rangers. Luke Shanley has been speaking to Steven Gerrard in the last hour. Luke, he's always said there won't be many new arrivals, so what departures can we expect?
Yeah, he's always wanted to trim the squad and get some playing time for the guys who have been on the periphery, and he confirmed today that Greg Docherty close to moving out on loan. We know Sunderland have been interested, and he also said that should happen in the next couple of days. He also added that Jamie Murphy should be moving out on loan as well. He said, but that might take a bit longer to sort out, but he wants the guys to get some playing time. And he also confirmed that James Tavernier, the captain, will miss a couple of weeks due to an appendix operation, but no real long-term concern, hence no cover required. They do have cover at the club with John Flanagan in any case, so he's not too worried about that. And he did say it would be a quiet window in terms of incomings, but this is what he's had to say in the last hour.
A real serious club in for Doherty. Negotiations are ongoing. It's getting closer and closer. I predict something could happen in the coming days. With Jamie, it's a similar situation, but maybe not as close as Doherty's. But I predict that they will go out, hopefully in a couple of days for their sake, so they can get playing football as quick as possible. But you know, these negotiations sometimes take longer than I want them to take. But in an ideal scenario, I want to see them playing competitive football in the coming days rather than weeks.
Well, some of the players that haven't had much game time will get a match against Stranraer in the league, in the Scottish Cup on Friday, Steven Gerrard confirmed, but we will see if he brings any players in by the end of January to strengthen the squad for the title battle in Scotland.
Luke, thank you very much. Right, we've got just enough time to talk about, go back to Arsenal there, because we talked about John Stones, didn't we? He also wasn't interested in Frank Kessié. Now, he's a big, strong central midfielder. Is that the type of player they need? Any of you?
Yeah, I could see that's sort of being a combative sort of midfielder that they would need, because we spoke about they haven't really filled that void probably since the Vieira days of that strong midfielder that's going to be able to hold down that midfield by himself. But at the same time, Arsenal will be encouraged by especially the form of Lucas Torreira as of late. And even though he's in a different sort of format, they love the way that he's combative in that midfield. They love his work rate and they love how he bites for a tackle. So at the same time, I don't really feel like those links are needed.
I just think we need maybe a body in there, another body. Arsenal need.
We all do it, James.
I know what you're talking about.
We all do it.
Neutral on this table. I think they need another body in the centre. Someone big, strong would be quite a nice fit alongside of Torreira, who is small but a lot of hustle around the field.
OK, remember to go to the transfer blog on the Sky Sports website, and also the podcast. The latest one is available right now to download on iTunes, Spreaker, and also on the Sky Sports website. For now, Dave, Michael, James and JD, thank you. I know you're back in a couple of hours' time. And remember, Good Morning Transfers returns tomorrow at 9 a.m. So, as usual, 9 a.m. until 10 a.m, all the way until deadline day. Transfer talk coming up in a couple of hours' time. We're joined by an influencer flex of Manchester United. And tonight, there's Dharma Sheth and Carve Solical with the Transfer Show at 7 p.m. But next on Sky Sports News, it's Match Centre with Danny Higginbotham ahead of a busy weekend in the Premier League, and we'll keep you up to date with the cricket as well.